Hello and welcome to the Petronella Computer Consultants presentation of backup and disaster recovery strategies. In the 21st century, it's more important than ever for you to have a clear-cut, well-documented, and technologically supported approach to protecting your important company information. You must have the peace of mind that comes from knowing that your backups are safe and your data is accessible, and in the event of a natural or man-made disaster, you can either keep your company up and running or get it up and running in a very short period of time. There's some new issues affecting data backup that we really didn't have to worry about just a few years ago. First, the amount of data that is being stored inside of companies is growing at an annual rate of 125%. Second, there are all sorts of new threats affecting the security of your data. These threats come from amateur hackers trying to have some fun at someone else's expense, but more often than not, the real threats come from professional thieves who have learned how to hack into small and medium businesses' databases and steal valuable information. Personal information about your employees, their health plans, etc., information about your customers' credit cards and your credit accounts, your banking information, and they'll use that to their benefit and your detriment. Laws have been passed that make it very strict for you to have compliance with HIPAA, high-tech, Sarbanes-Oxley, and I could go on. And it's just good common business practice to be able to restore your data and get your company back up and running in less than 72 hours. We're going to learn the differences between business continuity, disaster recovery, and backup. And most importantly, you're going to learn why you should care about these differences. We're going to help you understand how most businesses back up their data and how to choose the best option for you. We're going to help you understand why you should be afraid, very afraid, and what you need to have in place to ensure a fast recovery in case of a disaster and to maintain your business continuity. You're going to learn how to completely automate your backup system so you can say goodbye to the hassle of tape rotation, tape storage, and the inherent liability of human error. You're going to learn how to know with 100% certainty that your information is backed up and available to use when you need it. Now let me ask you a question, and hopefully no one in the audience today can respond positively. But I'll bet more than once, one or two of you have looked like the gentleman on the screen. Your data's gone. You can't retrieve it. The tapes that you thought were secure don't have the data on them. You can't restore your data. And now what do you do? The choices are many, but they're all expensive and they're all painful. For instance, in one situation, a technician wiped out a $38 billion fund. This was reported recently in Alaska as a result of one keystroke destroying hours of work. Now imagine that keystroke containing an account worth $38 billion. That's the risk you run if you don't have bulletproof, 100% secure backup. Now, business continuity, disaster recovery, and backup, oh my. We have to understand these three things. Business continuity is the ability to keep your business functional, up and running, in the aftermath of an extreme event. Let's say a hurricane, a fire, or a tornado. Backup is copying your data to a safe medium for recovery in the event of a data loss. And disaster recovery is the ability to eventually get your business back online. So part of your planning has to understand the continuity issue, the backup issue, and the recovery issue. This is much more than just a typical which computer should I buy or a typical IT conversation. Now let's walk through the different approaches that small businesses use for backing up their data. On the far left, you can see that the company has no backup at all. They are counting on good luck and they hope that nothing ever bad happens to them. Now this strategy is okay for a very, very small company that has very, very small amounts of data, none of which is vital to the company's existence. I would say typically you'd find this in a home user situation. Moving one column over, backing up onto an external media, CD, a jump drive, or a DVD. Now this is suitable for backing up a few files on a few workstations. And if you have 1 to 2, 3, or 3 people in your company, it may be okay for a short period of time, but the problems of understanding which file to back up, which ones have been erased, moving them from one media to another can become very complicated. And ultimately, you're injecting a significant amount of risk as a result of human error. We can go to the tape drive in the next column. Now this is used by all size companies, and it has been the most common strategy for backing up data for a long time. Now the problem with that is that the tapes typically fail. As a matter of fact, you can almost bet your bottom dollar that a tape drive will eventually fail. Moving over to the next column, a little more expense but a lot more security, a hard drive based NAS device only or offsite backup only. Both of those are good strategies, a little more complicated, and recently prices have come down to make these strategies viable for small to mid-sized businesses. Or you can move over to the right, which is actually the best, which is a service-based NAS with virtualization and off-site backup. Now this was once only used by large companies because they couldn't afford to be out of compliance with the various laws, nor could they afford to lose their data. Now because of the internet, the cloud, and advances in technology, the investment required to get into those is very low. Now let's do a deep dive on each of these. The pros of off-site media, or taking media like CDs or jump drives, is they're inexpensive. You have a reasonable success rate for recovery as long as you can remember which version was backed up most recently. The difficulties, or the negatives, drawbacks, are that you can only back up small amounts of data. It's completely manual, and it's not likely to be done regularly. You could be in a very bad situation if someone forgot for just a few days to back up. The tape drive can handle more data, large amounts of data, but you need to have hardware and software, and it's relatively inexpensive. Now I put quotes around relatively because that could mean that relative to other things it's inexpensive, but it is not reliable. As a matter of fact, even tapes that are considered to be very complete and very fulfilling are the ones that give us the worst success rate for recovery. And many people make the mistake, believe it or not, of putting their tapes into a safe and into a fireproof safe. That makes sense on the surface, but remember, tapes are not melt-proof. So even though they don't ignite and there's no flame, they melt into a puddle of lost data and sadness for you and your company. Hard drive-based NAS device or an off-site backup only is another approach, and again, it is coming down in price. No human action is required. That's very beneficial. It can back up huge amounts of data. It will go to a bare metal restore, and you have a good success rate for restoration. But there is an investment in hardware that's pretty expensive, and you do need technical expertise to install and maintain it. The home run is a server-based NAS and plus offsite storage. And this is one of the things that we at Petronella offer. Now, as a reward for attending our webinar today, we will provide you with a network security assessment which will allow you to understand your liabilities and risk as it pertains to data backup and disaster recovery. But let's get back to the topic here. The benefits of a NAS device plus offsite is there's no human action required whatsoever. You can back up very large amounts of data. A bare metal restore is always possible, and it allows for a disaster recovery plan to be in place and to restore your data back to where you were before a disaster hit. And it's done in very, very quick time by utilizing the offsite technology. Now, we all recognize that disasters can and do happen. These disasters include fire, tornadoes, floods, you name it. Let's take a look at why those disasters happen and what you can do to protect yourself against them. 44% of all data loss is because a hard drive failed. One of the things we do at Petronella to make sure that our clients never fall victim to this data or to this statistic is that we monitor their servers 24/7, 365. And we utilize special predictive software that will analyze the behavior of a hard drive and in one of your servers and anticipate a failure a few weeks into the future. Notices and alerts are sent to everyone that allows a human then to diagnose whether or not it's actually going to fail. If so, we can replace the drive before it fails, and or if you've utilizing the offsite backup, then you're all set to put a new drive in, restore to the new drive, and you're off and running. Human error is a cause for 32% of the data loss that occurs today, and that's because someone hit the wrong button, like the gentleman in Alaska. This accidental deletion of data is still painful and very expensive to replace. Now, sometimes this happens maliciously. A disgruntled employee, a salesperson moving to a new company, any one of a number of circumstances that could happen with your employees, current and or ex, could contribute to data loss. Software will be a 14% contributor because of data corruption due to a program crash or security patches that may cause the software to stop functioning correctly. 3% is actually attributable to disasters, which can't be anticipated. Regardless of the cause, we have certainty that your failure rate of disk and tape drives is 99%. Nearly all drives, regardless of their technology or brand, will eventually fail. Now, here's some client case studies where we were able to help our clients through this. The theft occurred on a majority of the company machines. Twice, people broke into their building and stole their machines. Luckily, they didn't steal the server. And if the server had been stolen, it would have been $25,000 in cost to replace that, not to mention the data reentry time, because all of the data was stored on the server. With client number 2, one of those outside hackers that I talked a moment ago or two got into the system to distribute illegal software and pornography through the company's server out to the rest of the world. Now, the internet provider saw that this was occurring, and they shut the victim company down. Now, that meant that the outside salespeople could not access the building to continue selling. No one within the victim company could send emails out, and emails couldn't get in. They lost 3 days of productivity, and it cost them $15,800 to repair and restore from where they were. Now, the backup was not working properly, and one click by the hacker, and they would have lost everything. Thankfully, the hacker didn't click that one keystroke. Now, what you need to have in place for a fast recovery is a plan that will help you understand step by step how you're going to address backing up your data. Your data must back up daily. It must be monitored by a human being within your company. And please, if you get nothing else out of today's webinar, make sure that you test for a complete restoration from your data backup medium. I don't care what kind of medium or strategies you use, but if you haven't restored all of your data, let's say within the last 90 days, then you could be in store for a very shocking and expensive surprise. Cover your past and make sure that you have complete accuracy in your restoration. Now, a strategy for a fast recovery is a bare metal restore. Now, continuous data protection occurs as the data is being written to the medium in small snapshots. So literally, should a disaster occur, you may be no more than a few minutes out of synchronization with reality. By virtualizing your server, we're able to simulate your server while new hardware is being ordered. Now, this virtualization allows us to get you up and running almost instantaneously should the real disaster occur. Now, we'll be able to ship new equipment to you within 24 hours. Now, to have a fast recovery, you need to have your servers talking to an on-site NAS device, and that NAS device will be part of the network where there's a virtualization into a server outside of your company somewhere in the cloud. This is a schematic of the best strategy where your data is co-located on the East Coast as well as the West. The cost of data loss and downtime is extreme, and we want to protect you against that. In the smallest company, 1 day of downtime will cost that company $8,300. And this is assuming that this company only does $2 million a year and they operate 20 days a month. It costs 19 days and $17,000 to retype 20 megabytes of sales data. The same volume of accounting data could take 21 days and $19,000. Recreating data from scratch is estimated to cost between $2,000 and $8,000 per megabyte. So, when our webinar concludes, take a quick look at how much data you are currently storing, and recognize that in the event your current backup and data recovery strategy is not bulletproof, then you could be looking at a bill of $2,000 to $8,000 per megabyte just to recreate the data that your company uses day in and day out. Most insurance companies will not insure company data, and the real scary facts are that 60% of companies that lose their data close down within 6 months of the disaster. 72% of businesses that suffer a major data loss disappear within 24 months. So it's easy to see that you can't afford to put your data at risk. Now, another client success occurred when their hard drive failed on their main and email servers. There were no hard drives in stock, but because we virtualized the server within 2 hours, they were back up and running. So they only lost 2 hours in light of a complete failure. We replaced the hard drives and imaged the server with all the changes since the crash. So with only 2 hours of downtime, and there was no charge for service. Compare that to the catastrophic financial impact that can occur in the event that you aren't prepared with a backup strategy such as that as we at Petronella advocate. Now, a client wanted to upgrade their server. The old server was being outgrown and was starting to perform very slowly. They ordered a new server, but because the old server had been virtualized, the new server was imaged and they were installed literally in a matter of a few hours. There was no downtime and a very small device. Now, you should take a look at these 8 reasons to replace your current backup with Petronella. Our approach is far more reliable than tape backups. It's fully automated. It's monitored 24/7, 365. And as I mentioned a few moments ago, we receive alerts should something look like it's going to fail. It's far more effective and safe to be proactive and have a preventative approach than a reactive one and hope you can patch things back together. We back up all open files, and we can restore a file in 3 minutes instead of 30 minutes. Daily virtualization of your backups are good, and virtualization means you'll never be down completely because your data will be able to be accessed in the event of any kind of a disaster. And overnight disaster recovery, complete restoration within 24 hours. So as I said earlier, our network security assessment will give you the peace of mind of knowing that your data is secure. If there are holes in your data, if your firewalls aren't up to date, if any one of a number of things aren't absolutely fine-tuned, you'll know what you don't know right now, and that is something that you can avoid creating some pain for yourself by knowing what you know. Someday you will have the need to have a backup, and don't wait until that day. I've heard people tell me, well, Gil, I'm not going to upgrade my protection because we're okay. The screens are glowing. Well, I'm here to tell you that is analogous to saying you won't wear your seatbelt in your car because it's uncomfortable, but that if you see an accident coming, you'll put it on pretty quickly. Clearly, in the case of an automobile accident, there's no time to react and snap your seatbelt buckle closed. The same's true with a data disaster. Servers, drives, fires, floods happen. Why risk your entire business? So get our security assessment, and I thank you very much for your time. Have a great day.